الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. All praises be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May peace and blessings be upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Dear brothers and sisters, I would like to share today one concern with you. And let me put it in this question. Is it binding to me to do to others what others are doing? In other words, if an individual or a system decides to do something, do they have the right to force other individuals and systems to do the same thing in return? This mutual treatment, if you like to say, is this a law that has to be enforced? Do people have to do to each other in return what each party does to the other? I have an example to just clarify my point. I have read that in Germany, 57% of highways have no speed limit. So people are, and this is the law of Germany on those highways, people are free to drive at any speed on these highways. Does that put an obligation on other European countries, for example, that when the German people are visiting them, they should be allowed to drive without speed limit just because Germany is allowing this? The obvious answer is no. Every system, every country will choose a system that best suits its country. It will take into consideration its culture, social, economical, religious issues to come up with a system for their convenience. Let's have another example. An example of having to get a visa when you visit a country. We all know that if a person from the so-called third world wants to visit a country of the so-called developed countries, he has to go into a long visa process that takes weeks. However, when a citizen of the developed country wants to visit many of those third world countries, most of the time he does not require a visa. Or probably he can just get it at the airport. Now, do the countries, those third world countries, have the right to say, well, since we are allowing your people in without visas, you should and you have to, in return, to allow our citizens to get into your countries without visas? The obvious answer is no. Every country will choose a system that will suits them, suits their security system, economical system, and so on. So, brothers and sisters, these are clear examples that every person will choose what is convenient and what suits him, and he doesn't have to respond to others in the same way they are doing. Now, let's move to another set of examples. Many Christians have no problem congratulating Muslims for their Eid. In fact, they are also willing to celebrate Muslims' Eids. Fine, they find nothing wrong with that in their system, in their social system, in their religious system. But that then puts an obligation on Muslims that then you have to celebrate Christmas with us and congratulate us on these events and say to us Happy New Year and Happy Christmas, since we are also saying to you Happy Eid? Why? If I have some reservations of this in my system, why do you want me to get out of my system to your system? You have nothing wrong with to do that in your system, that's fine and I respect that. But if I have some constraints for this in my system, you should as well respect that. Another example. Many Western countries allow their citizens, their Muslim citizens, to build mosques. Fine. They find that this is okay and consistent with their system. They find nothing wrong with that. And they don't do it only to Muslims, they do it to all other religions. And by the way, they are not doing it for the sake of Muslims, they are doing it because their system calls for this. Otherwise, there are other issues that Muslims in these countries are calling for, like to have their own court system. But these countries do not respond to that because that is not consistent with their system. So all of that is clear and respected. So if their system now allows Muslims to build mosques, does that put an obligation on Muslim countries then to allow them to build churches in their countries? Why? If those Muslim countries if this is not consistent with the system they are following, then why do they have to go out of their system just to do what others are willing to do? What is the difference between this example and the example of the speed driving without limit on the motorways? So every system, every country, every individual will do what is fine with him, fine with his principles and values. He doesn't have to do things that just because others are doing it. And there is a very clear, and that reminds me of a very clear evidence, brothers and sisters. In Surah Al-Kafirun, what do we read in Surah Al-Kafirun? In Surah Al-Kafirun, the kuffar, the non-believers, offered to the Prophet ﷺ that they are willing to worship his Lord for 1 year, provided that he will worship theirs for the next year. Now one may say, well, that's a fair deal. Well, it's not a fair deal. If the non-believers have no problem worshipping anything, so they can worship his Lord. But I have a problem of worshipping anything. So if that's okay with their system, they can do it. But that's not okay with my system. So I cannot do it. So I hope, brothers and sisters, the point is clear. We may consider this mutual treatment, but it shouldn't be obligatory and mandatory on me to follow. Let's remember, brothers and sisters, that Islam is a stand-alone system from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a unique, complete system. It's based on principles. It's based on values. It's based on wisdom. Islam is not based on reacting to what others do. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a religion. It will just be a mirror reflection of what others do. But Islam is a standalone religion. Islam does not act in reaction, simply in reaction to what others do. By the way, even if others do something evil, we Muslims are controlled in our response. We're not allowed to react in the same evil way people are reacting to us if that's not allowed in our system. For example, in some of those wars, we heard that some of the soldiers are raping ladies. Now we Muslims, if we have control on their ladies, we are not allowed to rape their ladies as a reaction to what they have done to us. Islam is a unique standalone system, and we are so grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that blessed us with such a wise and complete religion. And Allah knows best. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم.
لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله